Texas A&M had a really successful first season under head coach Mike Elko. They finished 8-5, but at one point they were 7-1. They had some really good wins against Missouri and LSU after they dropped that opener to Notre Dame. But then after that 7-1 start, that's when things just completely went off the rails for them. Marcel got banged up in a few matchups, and they lost 4 straight games against Power 4 teams to end the season, including their bowl loss against USC. And they also had a chance to make it to the SEC title game. All they had to do was beat Texas, but they came up short in that game. Ultimately, Mike Elko's first year in College Station, I feel, makes Texas A&M a dark horse team in the SEC this upcoming season because they returned the 4th most starters in college football this year. You got Marcel, who was really good when he took over for Connor Wigman. Not just was he really dynamic running the football, but he was pretty good throwing the ball at times. And with him going into year 2 in this system, I expect him to take even more strides throwing the ball. Hopefully, their wide receiving position ends up being a lot better than what it was previously because wide receivers at times for A&M weren't really that good at getting open, creating separation. Against Notre Dame, they got completely shafted and boxed. So I expect Marcel to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC this year. And I don't think he's getting talked about enough for the Heisman Trophy. Yeah, he may not be as appealing as a guy like Arch Manning or DJ Lagway, but he definitely is good enough as what those guys are from a talent standpoint to win it. He kind of has like Jaden Daniels vibes to him. And you also get a healthy Le'Veon Moss. That was a huge reason also why you ended up having such a sour end to last season because he got injured and he was the bell cow of your offense. And not just do you have Le'Veon Moss, but you got a lot of depth behind him at running back as well. And it also helps that you return all 5 of your starters on the offensive line from last year. You got an experienced group of linebackers and a really experienced secondary, which we should see this pass defense improve tremendously year 2 under Mike Elko. They were 96 in the country in pass yards per game allowed. There were times when they did give up a good amount of chunk plays. But what's going to determine if Texas A&M can win the SEC this year is going to come down to their wide receiver play. They lost their top 5 receiving options from the previous season. You added a really good wide receiver from NC State out of the portal and Kevin Concepcion. And don't sleep on true freshman wideout Jerome Myles. He's a beast. He should get significant playing time. I expect him to be a major contributor during the middle portion of the season for the Aggies once he starts to get settled in and they start going to him a lot more. Your pass rush also is a big question mark. You lose 3 NFL guys, Nick Scorton, Shamar Turner, and Shamar Stewart, but you replace them with a guy in TJ Searcy who should be really productive for you. You also got another pretty solid pass rusher out of the portal, which I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. I don't know how to pronounce that thing. But if you can get really good receiving play this year and your pass rush can be really good as what it was last season and possibly be a little bit better, I definitely can see Texas A&M winning the SEC this year. They got a really talented ball club. They had a really good team last year. They had a lot of carryover from the recruiting classes that Jimbo Fish was bringing in. And their schedule is pretty favorable. Your first 6 games of the season, 5 of those are going to be at home, which includes you having a home game against Florida, which that's going to be a really pivotal matchup for you. Florida could be a team that's vying for a playoff spot like you. And your toughest road games early during the year, you played Notre Dame and South Bend. Then you got to play LSU and Texas on the road at some point during this season. But all 3 of those road games are winnable. you are a better team talent-wise than what Notre Dame is coming into this year. Although their offensive line is a strength, they got question marks at quarterback. You have a more proven quarterback in Marcel Reed. You also got a really stacked defense on the linebacker unit and the secondary front. You should be good in that area. And we know that Notre Dame isn't the best when it comes to throwing the football. LSU, you were able to outcoach Brian Kelly last year. In the second half, Garrett Nussmeier and him just completely imploded in that game. And Texas, that's a rivalry game. Despite Texas being the most talented team entering this season, rivalry games normally tend to be close regardless of the talent level, as long as you have a really good coach, which I believe Mike Elko is. He was winning at Duke. Duke isn't just a school that anybody can jump and win at. So if you can win at Duke, you definitely can win at Texas A&M. And the talent discrepancy between A&M and Texas, it's wide, but it's not this. You feel me? It's not like Vandy compared to Texas. It's kind of like this, because you have recruited very well. I would say that you've recruited somewhat on par with Texas these last couple of years. It's just the player development hasn't really been there and the coaching hasn't been there. But this year, though, with what Texas A&M has and everybody pretty much coming back that was really productive for you offensively last year, if you can figure out receiver, we know Marcel Reed is a baller. We know what Le'Veon Moss does. And behind an offensive line that returns everybody, this should be a really good offense and be a lot better than what they were last year. There were times when the offense just got a little bit stuck in the mud. But I'm excited for what A&M could be this year. And I was talking with a buddy of mine before I started recording this. He was saying, like, A&M could be a dark horse team this year. I agree. I don't feel like they're getting talked about enough in terms of teams that can win this conference. Of course, you feel they can make it to the playoffs, but they got an actual shot to win the SEC. They were a game shy of making it to the SEC title game last year. And if they would have beaten Texas, who knows? Maybe they could have beaten Georgia. Georgia, you know, with the quarterback situation, the drops that they had at wide receiver. Texas A&M, you're not always what your record says you are. That's Josh Pate's famous saying. A&M was a lot better than that 8-5 record that they had. It's just things went left near the tail end of the season with the injuries and, you know, the inconsistencies that they had from their offense at times with Marcel Reed being a young quarterback. That's to be expected. But in terms of who's the dark horse team in the SEC this year, I'm going to go